Today, I gotta be honest with you, Columbus PD earns my highest respect. Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Columbus, Ohio.
Download the ASP Unlimited app for all the content you love from Active Self-Protection and more with no interference from YouTube. No ads, no age gates, exclusive videos, seminars, classes, and more on iOS, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. Hit the link in the description or download ASP Unlimited from your app store today.
Police are on a chase of this guy who is wanted in a shooting. They have sat up on his house for quite a while. He left the house in his car. They knew that he had at least one other person in the car. So they brought a bunch of marked units around. They're going to chase him. It goes on for quite some time. You can watch the original. I've linked it in the description. And they are going to catch up to him here pretty quick. Let's listen in on the dash cam and the badge cams.
Did you say 1925?
All right, they're going through the park. I can't get through. They're cutting through the park. Somebody just bailed. The car went westbound. I'm cut off. They're in the park.
Back up, cruiser.
Hey, stop, don't run. Get on the ground now. Get on the ground. He's going southbound through the park on the east side of the park. Cruiser, he's coming straight at you on the south side. Hey, just watch. He's out. Hands now. Put the kid down. Put the kid down now. Put the kid down. Let go of the kid now. Get on the ground.
Ay, padre mío. Baby, go dile que es okay, baby.
Check up on 192.
Gondito. Dile que es okay, Gondito. Ay, Gondito.
Get that stuff.
Mi baby. Mi padre, yo te porto bien contigo. Dile, Gondito. Dile que yo me porto bien contigo. Yo no problem. Yeah, no problem, me baby.
Sit up.
No problem, me baby. No problem, Polly. Me baby, Polly.
Stand up.
Me Polly. Me baby. Vete, Gondito.
Walk over here. Walk over here now.
Love you, baby. Love you. Love you, Gondito.
Stop.
Love you, perrito. Love you, baby, no problem. Baby.
Stop.
Sorry.
No, I just patted him
Baby,
down.
Polly, no problem, Polly. Me baby. Baby.
Stop.
Poquito, Polly, no problem, baby.
They took this guy into custody, and the lady that was with him was innocent. The child was unharmed. Thankfully, they took everybody into custody without any injuries here. Hey, do me a favor. This is the raw that I got here is from the Columbus Police Body Cams channel, and he does a pretty good job. And he's a small guy that is just getting going in the world. So go give his channel a sub. He's the raw that I've linked in the description. He does put up some good stuff that we use occasionally here to analyze. So thanks to him for that. You know, I gotta be honest with you, Mike, we don't see like as much activity out of the Midwest as we do out of Los Angeles, New York, places like that, but these cops got down.
Well, you forgot St. Louis, Chicago. I'm just saying.
It's true. So Mike, I know you and I tend to be a little reticent on police chases because bad stuff happens, man. But on the one hand, I kind of feel like in this case, this is kind of the time that you want to do a chase because it's late at night and there's low traffic. and this is kind of a good case. On the other hand, I wonder here, and I don't have a firm answer, but if they knew that he had a young child in the car, if they would have continued this or just waited for another day. I don't know what the right answer here is, but it does give me the icks to have a long police chase with a child in the car.
Yeah, so if you ask any first-line supervisor of any American law enforcement agency, so a sergeant, maybe lieutenant or captain who's a watch commander who are making decisions in the moment, hey, we've got this pursuit, here's the conditions. They're hearing this on the radio, right? Here are the conditions. Here's the traffic. Here's the speed. Here's the direction. And if one of those supervisors had heard, yeah, it looks like there's a little kid in the car, almost certainly they would have said, okay, we'll stop the pursuit, cut it off. We're not going to risk some little kid's life, regardless of what this guy is, being pursued for. It was a serious charge. Obviously, he was being pursued for. So I think had they known, odds are a supervisor would have 1022'd, as we like to say, this pursuit and cut it off. However, no way for them to know it. I did see a passenger at one point, I think during this pit maneuver or attempted pit maneuver. By the way, just as an aside, a pit maneuver on a street that narrow is almost never going to work, just an aside training point. So don't try it because it's almost certainly going to end with you, as this guy did, face first into somebody's front door.
I think the other part of that, if you go watch the original, okay, if you go watch the longer original, he takes that pretty personal. He gets pretty frustrated about that. And I understand that, but a couple things, officers. Number one, don't take things personal, right? You're just doing your job. Number two, during these kind of longer chases, you want to work really hard to control your arousal level, right? This is where that combat breathing comes in. That box breathing of 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold will really help you to kind of, calm your heart rate down and keep you in the thinking mode rather than in the reacting mode. And that is a very good thing. Now, once this guy, he squeezes his car through those couple of barriers and they're not able to squeeze the cruiser, they come out. Now, I will say here, Mike, they're chasing after a bad guy. I totally get them for that. They do kind of just ignore this woman who had her hands up and they just assume she's good to go and nobody seems to stop to detain her. And that scares me a little bit. So remember, you don't want to leave somebody behind you who you haven't secured who might be part of your problem.
Friend, baby mama, whatever, of the driver, and she just noped out of this and said, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I'm not trying to get killed because you're an idiot running from the police. However, if somebody bails out of the car and you have someone that can detain that person for a number of reasons, not the least of which is you run right by her assuming, oh, she's good to go. And then, she's armed and she's shooting at you from behind. And now you're surrounded by bad guys and bad girls or whatever. So yeah, I think detaining that person would be in everyone's best interest. I get it. You've got a bad guy. You've had a really dangerous pursuit and you want to get the bad guy into custody. I 100% understand that. However, I think leaving this person behind in this circumstance was probably not the right call, but I understand why they went right by her.
So they did go right by her. And now let's think about this apprehension. A couple things here that I want to pay attention to. First of all, good job by these guys, okay? So they did a pretty darn fine job. Let's think about a couple of things here. You guys know I love a pistol-mounted light. I think that it's absolutely required for every police officer that they have a pistol-mounted light because of these kinds of low-light conditions. They chase goblins down holes. But man, we're going to come up on a reason here that you need to be so well trained with your pistol-mounted light and really understand what you need. Because A, he's got a bright light behind him, so he needs bright light. But he's really pointing a gun at a 6-year-old here, okay? There's no way he's able to maintain his aim fine enough to not have this dirtbag covering himself with his child to not get shot. And you're almost certainly covering a 6-year-old. And that just scares me to death. So this would be one of those cases where lowering your gun to a low ready, getting your handheld out with your support hand and illuminating him with your handheld light, I think would have been a better answer, Mike.
Listen, I understand. I was in law enforcement for the better part of 30 years in the aggregate, and never once at the termination of a pursuit did I have, the driver hop out with a child in his or her arms. So it's unexpected, to be sure. So it takes a moment to orient yourself to what's going on. The OODA, as John likes to say, not the OODA, the OODA loop. You've got to observe this, orient yourself to okay, this is happening, and then decide what you're going to do next and then act. In this circumstance, I understand why the gun is out. I get that completely. I understand what we're seeing might not be what the officer or deputy is seeing in this situation because of that light behind it. But the moment you realize, A, this guy's not armed, and B, there's a small child involved, yeah, I agree. Get your gun down and away from any possibility of pointing at the kid and use a handheld light. With all that said, this is a termination of a crazy pursuit, and I've been there, and I understand the adrenaline and everything else that's going, which is why I want to go back to what John said earlier, practicing that combat breathing, keeping yourself in the moment, because this adrenaline dump is going to be colossal. Extended period of time for a pursuit, it's really hard to do, but these guys manage themselves pretty darn well.
I think particularly we see that here from the officer who assesses the problem and just goes hands-on with the guy. I think he, had to have certainly seen, nope, this guy doesn't have any weapons. We have a hostage situation, but not one where he's threatening the child with a weapon. He's using her as a shield. So I'm just going to go in and put hands on the guy and take, her away from him and get him into custody. And recognizing that, holstering your gun, getting in on this guy, I think that was really good decision making here, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say this about that. Working in tandem in law enforcement is so critically important. Understanding that, okay, I have lethal cover here. This officer who's badge camera watching has got his gun out. If something does go down, he's ready to go. I don't see a weapon in this person's hand. There's a small child involved. I can holster up and get in here and handle what I need to handle. And I think not only was it the right call, a great call for him to make, but the speed with which he determined all that. Again, that OODA, he's got to figure all this stuff out in the moment, under a high stress situation, just been driving in a pursuit. So he's already, amped up to 11 to be able to go, okay, let me back down a little bit. Let me not back down. Let me slow down a little bit and realize, okay, this guy's not armed. There's a kid. Let me get in there and get involved. Let me go tackle the guy or whatever, or pull the kid out of his arms. The speed with which he made those decisions was really, really admirable, in my opinion.
I also think, he didn't Terry Tate the guy. He didn't go in and blow him up and endanger the child in doing so. He kind of went in at a right speed. Good for him on that. I think there's another officer to really praise here in that they are putting this guy into cuffs, and the fourth officer shows up here and recognizes, I've got a 6-year-old who needs some help. And so, you get that idea of always look for work. These guys have that covered. What work can I be doing right now? And this officer coming over to the little child who is certainly traumatized by everything that's going on and saying, come here, sweetheart, let me help you. I just think shows a real, incredible amount of policing here. And I get it. People show up to this channel because they want to see, bad guys get their justice. But I really want to highlight here some really good police work of this guy recognizing the need to help this child.
Two perspectives I want to share here. One, as the survivor of some pretty significant abuse as a small child, and the police getting involved with some of those occasions. This is terrifying. The things she's witnessing are going to affect the rest of her life and every relationship she'll ever have, and that's unfortunate. So this, I believe it's a sergeant in the background going, oh, they've got this guy taken care of. Let me get in there and comfort her, maybe turn her around so she's not seeing all this sort of thing, to minimize her exposure to that traumatic incident is really admirable on his part. The other thing I want to mention is, I bet you at least one or more of these officers taking this guy into custody is almost certainly a parent. And just like when someone shoots at you or shoots at your partner or, kills another officer or whatever, and you witness it, the ability to not go overboard in this situation is extremely admirable. It shows their professionalism and their dedication to a lot of things, not the least of which is, hey, if I do anything extra with this guy, use of force wise, that's potentially going to get his charges dropped, going to get him paid, and it's not going to go the way I want it to go. So let me just get this guy into custody using the minimum amount of force necessary. But as a parent, that cannot have been easy for them to do, but great restraint on their part.
Yeah, good job all around here. Now, you guys heard this guy at the end wailing and, I love you, baby, and these things. A couple things about that. I get it. People are going to, cry me in the river of crocodile tears. But also, people are innocent until proven guilty. Right now, everything that we know about this story is allegations, not convictions that I can find at this point. Maybe they have become convictions at this point. But, okay, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But to me, Mike, I think the big problem here is he used his 6-year-old as a shield against the cops. I understand not wanting to get shot by the cops. Probably the best way to do that is not to run and take them on a long chase, and then certainly not to use your 6-year-old as a shield. So I have very little sympathy for those actions. Yeah,
a little sympathy is an understatement, if you ask me. And I'll say this about that. This guy made a decision to do the initial action that caused the pursuit. He made a decision not to stop when the police went to stop him, knowing his child was in the car. Allegedly, right? He then made a decision to take him on a dangerous chase, and then to meet police officers who are almost certainly going to be armed and holding firearms, holding that little kid. I'm not a big fan. I think at the end of the day, these officers did a really, really fantastic job. The few criticisms we had aside, they did a great job in getting this contained, getting this guy into custody safely, preventing the child from being injured, and covering their asp.